podcast. When you're done listening to the podcast tonight, remember, wear your mask and act responsibly when you're out in public. That's my TED Talk for tonight. After listening to the podcast tonight, don't forget to go to our website, stadiumjourney.com. Follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram at Stadium Journey. And the Stadium Journey podcast is proud to be part of the VOC Nation Radio Network. To find our podcast, simply search VOC Nation on iTunes or Android, or you can find our library of video podcasts on Stadium Journey's YouTube channel. We simulcast our podcast live at twitch.tv/DanLaw83. Hi to everyone who's watching us right now. And you can find every podcast we've ever recorded, coming up on the end of our third season now, at the Stadium Journey website. Just look under the podcast link on the menu. And joining me tonight, as always, is Dave Cotney. You can follow him online at ProFan9. Mark Viquez is on social media at Ballpark Hunter. You can follow our producer, Dan Calachico, at DanLaw83. And I'm Paul Baker. You can follow me at PuckmanRI. And we are very happy to be joined tonight by the Director of Broadcasting and the play-by-play voice of the Portland Sea Dogs, Emma Tiedemann. Emma, welcome aboard.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Great to have you here. There's not a lot of live baseball to talk about, but I'm sure we'll find something to fill up the time. So let's start off by, why don't you tell our listeners how you ended up in the great city of Portland, Maine?
Well, I'll keep it short because it's kind of a long story, but I've been broadcasting since I was 15 years old and fell in love with baseball during a kind of internship position up in Palmer, Alaska, just outside of Anchorage, and knew that I wanted to work in baseball. And so I spent a couple of years in summer collegiate, 1 year in independent baseball in Minnesota, and the last 2 years in Lexington, Kentucky, with the Lexington Legends with the mustache logo. And then I received this job up in Portland, moving on up to AA of the Boston Red Sox. I started here in March.
Wow, geez, that's a big resume already.
Very impressive.
And the first thing I thought of, and I'm sorry if this is insulting, but you look so young to already have a resume that long. But so outside of Anchorage, so you're familiar with the Midnight Sun game. That's something that we've talked about on this show before.
Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't get to go to it because we had our own game in Palmer, and that was up in Fairbanks that year. But, I mean, we never used stadium lights, and the sun never set. So it was basically a Midnight Sun game every night.
Wow, that's incredible.
I can see that.
So go ahead.
No, I just, Emma, did anybody inspire you to go into broadcasting, or did anybody inspire you to become a baseball fan?
Definitely my grandfather inspired me for broadcasting in general, and definitely baseball. He was the broadcaster for the Texas Rangers, Dallas Cowboys, Chicago White Sox, and World Class Championship Wrestling. And yep. And so he had plenty of stories to share whenever I was growing up. And then he's actually the one that got me into the booth and gave me an extra headset during one of his broadcasts of a Division III basketball game when I was 15. And he just said, you've played basketball your whole life. You're a shy kid, but let's give it a go. And if you want to say anything, then feel free. And I don't really remember saying much, but he says I talked the whole time. And from that moment on, I just haven't stopped broadcasting.
Natural. So you loved it. That's great to be a certain age and say, wow, I love this, and get to do that as an adult. So
yeah, definitely. I got lucky just finding out my passion early on, just able to pursue it.
Great.
You are now totally challenging Dan's ability to keep quiet by saying that your grandfather was a broadcaster in wrestling.
I am not silent. I'll ask later.
Okay.
For those of us who are not familiar, Dan is one of the biggest wrestling fans you will ever find in your lifetime.
No.
So Emma, you said you started with an internship at 15?
Sort of. I kind of joined those broadcasts on almost like a week-by-week basis because I was playing basketball and also a sophomore in high school, so I had other obligations. So when I had a free night, then my grandfather would pick me up from school and we'd go to the arena. And then by my junior year, the university just kind of asked me to stay and asked me to essentially join the student radio and TV broadcast side of things, and let me expand into volleyball and soccer and softball and baseball. And so I was over there quite a few nights a week. I didn't really have a free night off the last couple of years of my high school kind of career, just because I was always at a broadcast.
Geez. So outside of this, we usually, when we think of play-by-play voices, we think of the big sports, football, baseball, so forth. So you said you've done a bunch of different sports. Are there any other, I'm sorry, I'm starting all over this question. Are there any sports that you love that, people may not think, hey, I could do play-by-play for that sport?
I haven't really done anything outside of the usual. I love basketball. And I mean, each sport, as a play-by-play broadcaster, you have to prepare differently, and you kind of have a different style almost with the different sports that you're broadcasting, because like with baseball, you have a ton of downtime, a ton of free time to talk about stories and that kind of stuff. Basketball, for example, the last 2 years, I was calling women's basketball for Morehead State University, and I didn't have a partner, and we were on radio, and I talked the whole time, mostly play-by-play. Very little kind of backstories, just because I didn't have time with the action trying to paint that picture for radio. So I think that there's definitely some nuances that are between even the major sports. But of course, on ESPN, we see cornhole and axe throwing and stuff. So I guess there's play-by-play for that.
Cornhole. Sure. Yeah. Kickball too. I've seen that on YouTube. I play a lot of adult kickball, and I'm thinking to myself, that can't be too hard to do, especially if you're into the game. So
yeah, that's one you could do.
Yeah, maybe it'd be an Olympic sport.
Yeah, somebody who does in arena PA, it's the same thing. I do hockey and basketball, and it's different styles, even just for how you announce lineups and stuff. So
exactly.
So all right, so minor league baseball has been closed down for this year. What does it look like inside the offices of a minor league team right now? What are you all doing to keep yourselves busy?
Well, tons of stuff actually. We reopened a couple of months ago. And it's nice to see my coworkers in person, finally, after 3 months of working behind a screen. And so we've had one event so far. We transformed our field from Hadlock Field to Had Links, and we have platforms up at the suite level, and and it's golf. And we have 9 different holes down on the field. And so we have that. We had that for one weekend, and then starting this weekend, we're going to have dining on the diamond. So fans book their tables ahead of time, send us their food orders ahead of time, and it's very socially distant. Obviously, we have tons of space at a baseball field, and we're going to bring golf back, and just trying to keep some fans in the ballpark. In Maine, it is pretty strict with the amount of people you're allowed to have, even though we are an open air facility. So we're trying to balance that by still trying to make some sort of revenue and still pushing merchandise. And I think that's what a lot of teams are doing right now.
Yeah, you really have to think outside the box for the summer of 2020. We've seen Airbnbs at some ballparks, food service. We've even seen Lexington, your former organization, team up with the Florence Yalls in creating their own league where they're going to play each other, I believe, starting next weekend. So if it's any type of business, muster through the storm, it's baseball. But how is the feel? You get to Portland, you're getting ready to broadcast, and then you get the news. Did you think it would go this long? Did you have a feeling that you would not be broadcasting a game this year?
I had a feeling in May. My first day of work was actually, we had a meeting at 8:45 and we were told to go home for 3 months. So not the best way to start off your new AA job in a city where everything's closed down and you don't know a soul. So definitely not awesome. And then, our president and our front office we've been very, open to the idea that, minor league baseball would probably be shuttered for the year. And so it was around May or June that we kind of came to the conclusion as a staff. And, as everything went on, and especially at the major league level, watching that sort of mess, to put it lightly, of those two sides trying to figure out to have, any games at all or 60 or whatever. Notice that minor league baseball was left out of that conversation altogether. So once that we picked up on those, we got our statement ready and, still plan to have 2020, but already kind of putting some events kind of on the back burners of, pieces that we could put in place as soon as there was an official cancellation.
So we know that in minor league baseball, especially, the actual job does not necessarily lend itself to the title. So I would think the common person, myself included, would think director of broadcasting, you do the play-by-play, you do some media relations, but I'm guessing that there's a whole lot more than just that, especially now. So what does your job look like for the person who is not familiar with the broadcasting department as you're coming up the minors, hopefully towards the majors?
Right now it's definitely different than, say, this time last year with Lexington. Right now I'm helping transition our website. Minor league baseball has a new website format and stuff, and so we have to switch over each page individually. So we're tackling that massive task. And then just kind of helping around in the office. And then also we have to prepare for all of these events. The first couple of weeks while we're in the office, we also did stadium upgrades. So we grinded down and painted all the handrails in the ballpark. I've cleaned bathrooms. We've set up we had to build the platform, so we had to haul in all the wood ourselves. And then of course test it. So that was fun to actually golf a little at the ballpark. But yeah, definitely the media relations is in there too, especially with the cancellation announcement. And, honestly, just taking every day at a time. There has not been a tarp pool. So I guess that's the silver lining, because usually we're always doing tarp pools.
Oh yeah, minor league baseball. You never know what you're going to do, and be ready to do anything.
Exactly.
12 years working for a team myself. So yeah, I've done it all.
Yep.
So how, being new to Portland and not broadcasting games, what have you been doing to keep yourself busy outside of the ballpark in Maine? Have you done a lot of traveling per se?
A little bit. It's a really cool city, and luckily my sister lives in Brooklyn, and so she actually came up a couple of weeks ago to work from home. Their company is still working from home for the next couple of weeks. So I've had like a buddy up here, but before she got up here, just kind of, exploring with my dog. He loves that I'm home all the time. So
Me too.
on the weekends, we went camping a couple of times. We were going to go to the beach tonight, but we're probably going to do that tomorrow. There's a beach just right down the road here. I just look up trails and cool places to go. Everything is outdoors now. So went to a few breweries this weekend, and just kind of whatever Google comes up with.
You were in a good city for food and for breweries in Portland. It's one of the best places on the whole minor league circuit, not just in the area, to visit. So you need some recommendations. We hit Portland at least once a year.
Okay, perfect.
And I used to live in Portland, actually, many, many years ago.
Oh, nice.
We can give you some recommendations.
Yeah.
Whose hand did I see?
So as a native of Texas, how different was it to go and spend a chunk of time in Alaska?
It was definitely more different than I expected. I went up to Alaska because they were really one of the only teams that responded to my email and inquiry about a broadcaster and stuff. So they offered to pay to fly me up there. I was going to be unpaid, but I thought, why not? And so I flew up there, and I had my kind of oh crap moment when we were descending into Anchorage, and they were the largest mountains I've ever seen in my life, right next to the ocean, which I grew up in Dallas, so there was no ocean near me. And then to land at like 10:30, we got into Palmer at 11 o'clock that night, and the sun was still up. I mean, talk about a shock to the system. So once I got over that kind of first night and meeting my host family for the first time and being the only girl in the house too, they only had like sons, and then my broadcast partner was with me too. I kind of embraced it and, got to hike on a glacier and try to do as many Alaska things as I could.
What are Alaska things? I'm curious.
I mean, just kind of take it in the wildlife. It took me a little while to see.
The scenery.
I finally got my first moose sighting, and then I didn't actually go salmon fishing, but I watched the combat fishing in the Kenai Peninsula, and kind of just all of those little things that that they just are so proud of.
Yeah, it's beautiful, beautiful scenery out there, and my goodness, you can drive some ways and not seeing. So that definitely is a culture shock. That's the one state I haven't been to. I would love to go there. But one state I really love is Oregon, and your travels take you down to Medford. Any wacky stories from Medford? Any memories you've had broadcasting with the Rogues?
Almost winning a championship and then not. That's a tough one. But I mean, Medford, I was there for 2 years, and it was just kind of a whirlwind of stepping into a position. But I think looking back, we were in my second season, we were in the Great West League, and we had this bus that was notorious for breaking down. And I mean, this company obviously had multiple buses, but for some reason, they kept giving us the broken down bus. And so we were driving down to Southern California, and actually it might be Northern or Southern Chico. And it was like 115 degrees that day, and the AC went out. And I'm at the front of the bus, and everyone is just sweating. I mean, it's awful. We can't open the windows, and we're just cooking in this bus. And then all of a sudden I hear the wind just like whipping in the back. And I look back, and the players have taken off their shirts, and they're taking turns sticking their head out of the fire exit at the ceiling. I was like, oh my God.
So those are great stories to tell in the future.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, especially on a podcast or to your grandkids. Distant, so I love having most fun you probably never want to have again, correct?
Correct. Yeah, I really like to have operational buses.
No, I'm with you there.
The pro wrestling fan would like to interject for a second. So I just realized who your grandfather was.
Okay.
And holy crap, I'm not going to inundate you with questions about him because it's not about him, but holy crap. I just wanted you to know that I knew who that was, and holy crap. So my question is, how was he? Was he did he encourage you? Did you meet any resistance from? And for those who don't know, her grandfather is Bill Mercer. It was a announcer for World Class Championship Wrestling in Dallas for years. That is a legendary name. Was he encouraging? Did you meet any resistance from the man?
No, none at all. I mean, no resistance. I had all the encouragement. I want to make that clear. No, he was fantastic. I mean, he's the one who put me on the broadcast in the first place. And,
Wow.
He's still around. He's 94. And so ever since then, he has listened to just about every broadcast I've ever done, including Alaska, when at that point he was living in North Carolina and had to stay up until like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning to finish a game. And so, I mean, I get either a text message, a phone call, or an email about the game that night. And now we're on the kind of system of, if I had a bad broadcast, I know I did, so I don't need like extra like knife in the wound and then just like make it worse. So it's kind of taken us some time of being like, all right, I know I suck, but I can get better. I know what I did wrong. But no, he's fantastic and has been, he's always my first phone call when I get any job or move up a level or anything. And he was pretty speechless when I got the Portland job. So he's been there every step of the way.
That's great. So I'm glad to know that. I'm happy to know he's still kicking, because that World Class was a hell of a story.
Yeah, he has so many stories about that time too.
Oh my God.
Amazing.
That's amazing. I'm glad he was. Did you meet resistance from peers?
No, not really. I really have a supportive kind of core group of friends. It was tough breaking into minor league baseball. I won't lie about that. Had a couple of tough interviews of just learning I wouldn't be hired because of my gender and whatnot. And, maybe I was naive, but I didn't really ever expect to meet that. And, 2018, 2019, I thought we were all over that kind of sexist stuff. But we're not.
If only, right?
Right. So it was just those kinds of things. But ever since I've been in the industry, it's been nothing but support and
Good.
cool to see other females kind of join the ranks also.
Good. That's all. Paul, take back over.
All right. So while we're talking about females in broadcasting, who were your idols growing up? Who did you look up to and try to emulate?
Well, there weren't a whole lot of female play-by-play broadcasters, but I was definitely kind of aware of like Doris Burke. I think she's incredibly smart, and and then I kind of became more aware of Susan Waldman and now of the New York Yankees, and now we text and stuff, and it's kind of crazy to text
Oh,
me.
nice. Oh, nice.
Yeah, so it's kind of those women that I definitely look up to now, and then kind of make sure that if I hear of another female baseball broadcaster, I slide into her Twitter DMs or whatever and kind of welcome her in, because it's a very small group of us and we need as much support as possible.
That was going to be my follow-up question. How many other female broadcasters are there around minor league baseball right now?
I believe there's 4 others currently.
Out of 160 teams.
Yeah. Yep. Hey, but the number is growing, so that's good.
Well, we're on a day announced today or yesterday that the former Washington Redskins have hired a lady whose name I do not have written down, unfortunately, to do their play-by-play. And I believe she's the first to do NFL play-by-play on radio for a team. Is that right?
That sounds right to me.
Sounds right.
Well, I mean, it doesn't sound right. It sounds correct.
Correct. Good catch.
Well, see, it's funny because one of the teams I work for is a women's pro hockey team. So having women in all positions is just normal to me and something I'm used to. So to hear that it's not any other way is kind of strange. But then again, I worked in minor league baseball for 12 years, and I can count on one hand the amount of women who held full-time jobs in Pawtucket. So yeah, I can see both sides.
Well, and I told this before we came on. I crossed paths I crossed Emma's path. She obviously didn't know I was there. But we were in Lexington, and Emma was doing play-by-play that was being played in the concourse. And we were there as guests of the manager and their family. And I went back and said, wow, there's a lady doing play-by-play on the radio. And it just struck me as, I'm going to use the wrong word here or something. It wasn't the norm. It was ear-catching because it was different right off the top. And then, you listen a little bit longer, and then you hear the quality and really I would say the ease of listening with Emma specifically. So I know what you're saying. It's not the norm, and there's far too few. And I think it's a slow change, but
hopefully we're turning a corner, and it won't be so jarring when you hear it soon. Sorry. So if I go into an uncomfortable territory here, Emma, just let me know. But with the Washington Post story that came out last week, and the stories of mistreatment and harassment that have come out, is that something you've experienced at all? And I'm not asking you to tell names or anything, but it seems like your experience has not been typical of what I've been hearing from other women in the field.
Yeah, fortunately, I really kind of haven't been met with that type of harassment. I really did kind of resonate with the quote that's saying, being reminded that you can be replaced in a second. But at the same time, I think that's basically any broadcaster. I don't think that's gender specific, just because it's so competitive. So I think I have had it pretty lucky. I've had colleagues, quite a few colleagues actually, other female broadcasters kind of share with me their experiences, which, sometimes you wonder, oh my gosh, you're still in sports. How do you do it? So I've definitely heard those types of stories before, unfortunately, but, luckily I haven't had that level of harassment. I've definitely been asked, more trivial questions of, more baseball stats and, oh, well, did you know this guy and this guy, that kind of stuff, which definitely is not the norm for my male colleagues. But I kind of just brush that stuff off because, like, as we learned from the story, it could be much, much worse.
Right. I guess that's a common thing I hear from a lot of my colleagues that I come in contact with is that someone who talks to me will assume I know what I'm talking about when it comes to sports. They always have to prove that they're not, just watching a player because he's cute. They've got to prove that they know the sport as well.
Exactly.
And a lot of these women are very accomplished athletes in their own right. So,
You know what, Paul? It's when we started the hockey podcast with Kelly, my fiance, and the comments she used to get at first when we started, which would make me laugh because as far as hockey and any of us in this room, I'm assuming for Emma as well, she could run circles around us as far as knowledge and without the drop of a hat, but she would always have to prove herself, which is kind of like, it's organic. I know she knows more than me. That's fine. That's cool. She owns more hockey jerseys than I remember even existing. I'm not threatened by that. It's nice to see because, as Paul was saying, connected it back to wrestling. There's a lot of stories that came out the last couple of weeks. It's all terrible. They're still terrible people. But it seems to be, even in the middle of this pandemic, that more good is supporting the good and the bad is kind of starting to get pushed out. And it's good to see. This is Emma. She's just a good play-by-play. That's it.
Yeah.
Period.
So
yeah, I agree.
And that's the way it should be, absolutely. So the other big news in minor league baseball right now is contraction.
Yep.
So you're probably safe in Portland, but what is the mood like around your colleagues, of people you know? I mean, you come from Lexington. Are they one of the teams that's in danger? Are they low A or?
They are low A, and they are on the list.
Hmm.
So it was definitely unnerving when we found out. I think it was December, before the New York Times article came out about the list, and the dreaded list and all that kind of stuff. So it's it's kind of unnerving. You go to work and you think your job is secure because you're with a successful franchise. The city supports you, the major league club supports you. Things are great, and then all of a sudden, Major League Baseball can take that away with just making a different PBA agreement. So we definitely kind of had a busier off season than I think that most people did, especially I think the 42 teams that are on the list definitely were having to talk to their Congress people, talk to their city councils, talk to their governors, get people to lobby for their behalf, and just kind of making a point of saying we're in this community and we do tons and tons of good for it besides just the baseball. And please keep us. So as of now, I mean, it's still all up in the air. Last I heard is that they did kind of push the negotiations due to the coronavirus. And so that PBA agreement set to run out September 30th. And after that, the landscape of minor league baseball might be very, very different.
Yeah, you've got two forces competing to get rid of struggling teams right now.
Well, and don't forget with the virus, you have a shift in all of the schedules as well. So not only has minor league baseball taking a hiatus, you have a drastic shift in the schedule for the NHL and the NBA. And the idea that those sports are just going to pick up next October or November when they would normally pick up is it's not going to happen. They're, at the very least, they're going to push those back. I mean, basketball's talking about starting at Christmas. Well, what's the after effect of that? Well, instead of ending in May, then they're going to end in July or August or whatever. And as much as baseball thinks that, you know, all these extra teams are an expense, it's still eyeballs on the greater piece of baseball. And there's more competition coming rather than just these little, you know, single A teams or rookie league teams that are competing for eyeballs, keeping people away from watching big clubs on TV and other expenses. I mean, you could have a significant number of eyeballs leaving baseball altogether.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, I think that one of the great examples is the state of Montana. All of their teams are set to be on the contraction list and to not exist in 2021. But if you're living in, you know, Missoula, Montana, well, if you want to go to watch a game in person, you have to drive 10 to 12 hours, I think, to the Twin Cities, or you have Seattle, which is the same distance. And so it's the development of players, yes, which, you know, in the whole grand scheme of baseball and the billion-dollar industry, they're really not that expensive to operate. And so you're taking away the development of players, but then you're also taking the development of fans away. And it's fans in those small communities, and especially those short season communities, that they rely on that entertainment. They rely on, you know, the concession workers. That's an extra income for them, most likely. You know, maybe that's how they take a trip to a different state and they put that money into that tourism. It's, you know, different things like that you take that away, people are going to be bitter about baseball to begin with, and we might lose fans forever. So you're not only taking eyeballs off the big league product, but you're taking it off the minor league product, which instills the love of the game and a kid who might want to be a manager one day or a front office employee one day. So the ripples in this thing are massive, and it's just so much to try and comprehend of why they would want to take this away in the first place.
Mark, did I see your hand? Oh, I think Mark is frozen.
No, I'm right here.
He's just
Okay.
meditating.
That was pretty good, man. You didn't move for a full 30 seconds there.
Yes, I was trying to do that. Yeah, I just want to. Yeah, I have talked to some teams that are on the list of being chopped off, and it's something like under $1 million in savings.
Right.
What it comes out to be, that seems to be chump change to major league clubs. So it's I don't know. I think we're all anticipating the worst if they do, you know, these teams do get lobbed off. I go to Lexington a lot. I'd be ashamed if the Legends are one of the teams on the list, because I think they're rather successful attendance wise. I mean, Lexington's a nice sized city. Why would you not want to have a minor league team there?
They have great logos and great hats.
Yeah, they're one of the first teams to really embrace the wacky logo. The mustache logo, I think, was sold in all 50 states at one point.
Yeah, I think it was one of the top selling hats in the country
Exactly.
when it first came out. Yeah, I mean, speaking for Lexington, I can't speak for the other teams on the list, but you know, Lexington puts over $1 million back in the community, and whether that is in cash or in-kind donations, which the cash donations, most teams will just give tickets away and that kind of stuff, but Lexington focuses even more so on the development of baseball and giving cash donations to the little leagues in and around the city, not just Lexington, but the surrounding counties as well. So, you know, what happens to those nonprofits and stuff when you take away that $1 million? You know, some of them are very small and they kind of look to the Legends to kind of help, you know, their cause and what have you. And so, you know, Lexington is just a small example of that. You take, you know, if every team is averaging $1 million put back into the community, whatever that looks like, that's $42 million out. So different things like that it's just unfathomable of not having that minor league support.
And it's another spot to talk about Kentucky basketball. I mean, you can talk about it in between innings and stuff.
All the time. Cats by 90.
So in your large amount of travels across the country in various leagues, where have been your favorites outside of your home ballparks to go to?
I think when I was in Medford, my first year, the Kelowna Falcons up in Canada, we got to go up to Canada, and that was my first time north of the border. And
It's a great spot, Canada. I love it.
yeah, it's they,
Dave is from Canada, by the way.
To the western part.
Not Kelowna, but
but I just thought it was cool just to be in Canada for the first time and be able to call a baseball game in my second country. You know, I think that was pretty cool. There was a spot, Kitsap, I think it was Kitsap, just outside of Seattle. They had a tiny ballpark, probably one of the smallest I've ever been to. But it was nestled like in these trees kind of, and you have to go over this bridge, and it's on one of like the tiny islands just outside of Seattle. So that one was just gorgeous. And actually got to go to Canada again, to Winnipeg with the St. Paul Saints. And so lots of different places. Lakewood, New Jersey, when we won the championship for Lexington. I mean, it's still Jersey, but hey, we won a championship. So
Did you have pork roll while you were there?
Oh, jeez.
I chose not to.
no, not the pork roll.
Yeah, Dan and I are from New Jersey.
What an
Lakewood.
excellent question you just asked, Mark.
You
That's
said
weird.
Lakewood, New Jersey. They have the pork roll, egg, and cheese race.
Yep,
No.
didn't have that.
You know.
Emma made the better decision by not having any.
Well,
I'm so thrilled to hear you talk about these little ballparks, because the four of us are always talking about hidden gems, little out of the way ballparks that wouldn't get any attention, but that are some of the best places to go check out.
Yeah, they really are, and a lot of them are super historic too. There was one in I can imagine the hotel we stayed at in the neighborhood, but I can't remember the city. It was with a purple logo, but it was, I'll have to look it up. But it was just
Keep talking, Mark will figure it out.
okay.
what league was it?
What's that?
Was it West Coast League or Great West?
Great West League, and it was the grape was the logo. But I knew that the ballpark was really historic, but I had to look it up a little bit to see exactly why. And
Sonoma.
Not
Was it Sonoma? No.
Not Sonoma.
Lodi? Was it Lodi?
Lodi. Yeah, the Lodi
Yeah,
Crushers.
there you go.
Yep.
There you go.
So in Lodi, they in this old like ballpark again, it's just like nestled just right off the street. You kind of, if you didn't know it was there, you definitely miss it. But the seating on the left field side, down the third base side, was original to the Giants ballpark, original Major League ballpark. But then whenever they redid it or something, they had all these extra seats, and so Lodi bought them, and they're from like the 30s or 40s, something like that. So it's just weird things like that you just kind of come across, and if you do your research, like every broadcaster should, little nuggets for the broadcast to help paint the picture.
I'll have to look that up as soon as we're done with tonight's podcast. I was unaware that. So this must be Seal Stadium that those seats are from.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
Wow.
The Giants. I think it was the Giants, but you'll have to look it up.
Yeah, we'll look it up.
So you have yet to experience a ball game at Hadlock, am I correct?
That's true. I've never been to a game at Hadlock.
Oh, let's see. What could I tell you to expect? I don't know. A lot of noise. The kids love to stomp on the aluminum bleachers there.
Oh boy. Yep.
So I'm sure you know all about the expo right next door in right field there.
Yep, very familiar. I eat lunch there every day, or next to it every day. I am
So
good friends with Slugger now, so I've had that whole experience.
Slugger is one of the better mascots out there. So active during the games. Geez, what was I just gonna? All right, I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. You know what we got to do? We've got to bring back. You've got to talk to the front office and get brunch with the Sea Dogs brought back.
Oh, okay.
See, we live 2.5, 3 hours away from Portland, but we used to drive up there every year for that. They used to have this thing out in the pavilion there in right field.
Yeah.
You'd have brunch with the team. There would be an autograph session. You could kind of wander around the field a little bit. And then, well, for me, with Selfie, we'd go down to the old port and have some lunch and wander around a little bit and then come back for a game later on. So it was always a great day for us. But they stopped doing it 4 or 5 years ago.
All right. Yeah, I'll talk to the higher ups.
So, geez, what else can I tell you about Portland? I don't know. Yeah, check out Have you had any good breweries? Portland's known for their breweries.
Yep.
Any favorites you picked out so far?
Let's see. I went to Foundation over the weekend. Allagash, of course.
Allagash is always one of the better ones. Yep.
Yep. I haven't been to Shipyard yet. Some of these, like Allagash, for example, you can't hang out there. It's just go orders only. But like Foundation and a couple of the small ones, they have outdoor seating in their parking lot, so you can get a flight and kind of hang out there a little bit. But I think Allagash is probably the favorite right now. But I try and pick up a different type every time I go to the grocery store. So.
At Shipyard, just don't get the Halloween ale. The pumpkin ale is horrible.
No, don't get Halloween ale to begin with.
Well, yeah, it's awful. It's awful. We bought a case one time because it was $5. We said, yeah, no problem. Everybody will try this. It's a flavor. And a year later, I think we still had 21 of the 24 beers because nobody liked it. So, one of my favorites is Sea Dog.
Oh, yes. Yep. That's a good one, actually.
Yeah. Geez, and the food. So being from Texas, have you been able to sample the Portland cuisine, the seafood?
Yes, I actually love seafood. So I've had a couple of lobster rolls. My favorite has been at Portland Lobster Company so far.
Yep, fantastic.
Yep. And then, over the weekend had a nice dinner and had some clams or something in that. And so I try to incorporate, maybe a nice local beer and some local seafood because I've gone a long time without it. So.
Oh, man. See, we can't go up into Maine right now because we've been all summer. We got to get up to Maine. They're not letting people from Massachusetts into Maine.
Yeah.
So it's been tough. A little hole-in-the-wall, divey place to check out for sure, especially if you like seafood. Jay's Oysters.
Okay, I've heard of it.
Right down on the waterfront. You can get, I don't know if you've ever tried steamers. It's kind of a local
I've heard
thing.
of them. Yep.
Fantastic. You get a giant bucket of steamers and you just go to town with, like you said, a great local beer and something, and you're good to go.
Awesome.
So yeah, Portland's just such a fantastic city to visit, and especially in the summertime. I don't know if you'll be there year round, but
I will. So I'm mentally preparing for the winter now, because as the Texan in me is loving these like 75-degree days and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Over the weekend, I will say it did get warm to 90 degrees. But I'm loving the summer, but the winter will be a totally different story for me because I don't really do snow.
Well, Portland's not as bad as you would think. Portland's not as bad as you would think because it's right on the water. So inland and north get a lot more snow, but you get spared a little bit of it in Portland.
A little. That's fine with me.
And you've got
this is like a little northeast little, not like Texas little.
True.
Dusting.
No. When I talk a little, I'm talking a foot.
2 inches.
So Portland's a great city. A lot of culture to check out there. So yeah, and enjoy it. Wander up. Portland is a great walkable city too. This turned into the Portland podcast, but that's all right. I don't care.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, that's fine.
One of my favorite cities to visit in the whole minor league circuit. So I can't recommend it enough. In fact, I think there's an article coming out on Stadium Journey soon about Portland.
Ah.
Okay.
So we've talked about the Portland. We talked about contraction. You guys have anything else?
Any favorite players who you have run across in your travels?
Any favorite? Sorry, I had to cough.
No, I no problem. Any favorite players?
Well, I mean, in Alaska, we had a pretty stacked team. So we had Nick Senzel, who's with the Cincinnati Reds right now, actually at the big league level, which is pretty cool to see. It's always nice to see the guys kind of move up. I really enjoyed the group that we had in Lexington in 2018. The crop of top prospects now that are, playing, I think quite a few of them played tonight, actually, with the big league squad in Kansas City, but they were just a bunch of 19-year-old kids, and one of them, Sully Matias, just smacked a couple of bombs opening night and was just a kid about everything and was just so happy and just playing baseball every day. And Nick Prado, who's the first baseman, was always just a California guy with his flip-flops on and always ready to talk. And so I think that crop of guys in Lexington in 2018 was kind of definitely my favorite. A lot of all-stars and a lot of talent.
And a
Uh,
good Canadian manager.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always loved when those California guys showed up with their flip-flops on.
Yeah.
Hey, I know you already kind of answered this before, but we got a question, Emma, from someone who's watching right now on Twitch. Sorry, I got to get my glasses on.
Glasses on.
Yeah, it's tough getting old, I tell you. J.S. Caglian asked about who your biggest inspirations were growing up and getting into the business.
Ooh, biggest inspirations. I think that definitely my grandfather. Obviously, I grew up listening to Eric Nadel, the voice of the Rangers, and actually, he's kind of a mentor of mine now, and he was actually the one who put me in contact with Susan Waldman, and I think that just kind of hearing those voices definitely inspired me. And then whenever I kind of came closer to minor league baseball, listening to Kirsten Karbach, she was the voice of the Reading Fightin' Phils, kind of hearing that female voice was definitely in my mind like, okay, we can do this. We can work in minor league baseball. But definitely I would think, looking back, I think that listening to Eric Nadel and Matt Hicks of the Rangers, I think were kind of that inspiration of, it sounds fun to be on a baseball broadcast and broadcast with your friend every day and go to the ballpark. So probably those two.
Awesome. Thanks so much for that. So I guess before we let you go, Emma, thanks again for coming on. It's been great to talk to you and, miss Portland a little bit, I guess. But do you want to let our listeners know if they want to follow you for the rest of the summer and the upcoming season in 2021? Where can they find you on social media?
Yeah, so Twitter and Instagram, Emma Tieds, Tieds. It's not a whole lot of baseball these days, but it's a lot of my dog, Davy Crockett, who, I don't know if you noticed, he was pacing back here.
We saw him, yes.
But yeah, a lot of pictures of Maine and that kind of stuff. So yeah, you can find me there.
Fantastic. And we look forward to following you and looking forward to some baseball. Or is anything going on this winter? Do you do any other sports in the off season, or is it all baseball all the time now?
Now it is, until the foreseeable future when we have, a lot of the schools up here have shut down their kind of fall and winter sports already. It used to be basketball in the off season down in Kentucky, but I'm full-time up here, so I'm a Mainer, and it's baseball 24/7.
All right. Very good. So we look forward to hearing from you again soon, Emma. Thanks for joining us.
Anytime.
Thank you.
All right,
Thanks,
that was
Emma.
Emma Tiedemann from the Portland Sea Dogs. Emma, thanks for joining us, and we look forward to watching you climb the ranks of the minor leagues and maybe hear you in the major leagues, and then we can say, hey, we knew you win. So this is the part of the podcast where we talk about where we've been, and we actually have a couple of visits we can talk about, a couple of new ballparks. Mark, you said you did a little traveling over the last couple of weeks.
Well, no, I'm going to I was supposed to go to Chicago, but that got canceled because of something else. I did go to the Indy 11 game last Saturday, USL Championship, 8,000-seat dome NFL stadium with 300 people. It was very eerie, very quiet. They took your temperature when you went in. Not everything was open. The Brickyard Battalion, which is their supporter section, had, my goodness, maybe 15, 20 people there. They were still very boisterous. They still made their presence felt, but it definitely was a solemn atmosphere. However, if you were there to watch the game and you were worried about sitting next to somebody, you didn't have to really worry about that.
Plenty of room.
There was plenty of room to sit someplace. And, Indy won 2-0. So, if you're a fan of the soccer and nothing else, that's all you really needed.
Now, the Indy 11 usually draw pretty good crowds, right?
They claim about 10,000. I say they probably get 7,000 to 8,000 people. My biggest complaint with Lucas Oil is it's just too darn big. I like their other venue better that they play their playoff games at. But yeah, the atmosphere is tough because you're playing in such a big venue, even with 20,000 people there, which they've drawn a couple times. Usually when Louisville or when Cincinnati was in the league, they would bring their fans up. But yeah, they're one of the better draws in that league. So yeah, 300 people was a little bit of a letdown. I also tried to go to Louisville. They opened up their new soccer stadium, but they weren't offering any press passes and tickets were sold out. So they had they had a little bit more people at their stadium just because I think Kentucky allows more people compared to Indianapolis.
So I was going to ask, why were there only 300 people at the Indy game? Were they capping attendance, or just people aren't going because of everything?
If they were capping attendance, there should have been more people. A lot of my friends and a lot of the people that I know that I'm friends with that go to the games were just a little bit worried about social distancing. When I showed them the picture, when I showed them the video, which is on my YouTube channel, Ballpark Hunter, I said, guys, you don't have, I mean, if you're worried about social distancing, there's plenty of room to move around. I think the first game, a lot of people were just really questioning whether they should go or not. I thought there was going to be a lot more people. I thought they could at least pack in 1,000, and 1,000 people could have been spread out very easily too. But yeah, it was a little bit of a head scratcher. So I just think people are a little bit worried about going downtown, and now everybody has to wear a mask when you're in Indianapolis, Marion County, even at the game, even outside when you're walking around close to people. That's ticked some people off. Because some of the surrounding counties, like where I live, you can go do whatever you want without a mask. But in Marion County, you have to wear a mask. And you got a lot of people saying you're infringing upon their rights. And unfortunately, this is not the time to be patriotic. It's time to be practical and safe. So everybody had a mask on at the game, which I don't think I saw anybody without a mask.
Well, without trying to turn this into a political argument, that's not patriotic. That's there's something else.
It's stupid. So maybe people are like, I'm just not going to the game if that's the case. So
it's
watch on TV. Yeah, and I don't think they had a lot of people at the second game. I think they had a very similar. So, and then of course Victory Field, where the Indianapolis Indians play. The last 2 weeks they've been hosting a summer college league, which I was not aware of until I saw their post. They looked like they had a little bit more fans at the stadium based on some of the photos I saw, which was surprising. So I won't be able to go this Thursday. Maybe the Thursday after, I'll be able to check it out, see what all the hype is or what they're doing differently.
Cool. Yeah, I hit up a couple of games not this past weekend, the weekend before. First, we went up to see the Worcester Bravehearts of the Futures League. Now, usually the Bravehearts usually play at Fitton Field, which is on the campus of Holy Cross, but the college is closed down, so they had to, at the last minute, probably just a couple days before their season started, come up with a new place to play. And the place they found was Doyle Field in Leominster, Mass., which is a small city of about 40,000 people. It's located about 20 minutes north of Worcester. And Doyle Field was formerly used in the Futures League. The Wachusett Dirt Dogs played there for 7 seasons. Now, while the Dirt Dogs played there, Doyle Field was called by somebody who does does stadium reviews, not us, was called the worst field that they have ever been to. Now, it wasn't that bad, but yeah, it wasn't good. Doyle Field used to have these old wooden bleachers, and I swear, when we went there the first time, the bleachers were not upright like this. They were like this. And it looked like if a few people sat on them, the whole thing was going to topple over. Now, that was, the last time I was there was 2012. In the meantime, the city has invested a lot of money, improved the field. It's a giant complex. It's a giant public park. That's how they can allow people in, because people can use the park. That's not restricted in Massachusetts right now. So there's a football stadium there, a baseball field, soccer field, track, all these things that are open. So you're able to come in and bring your own chairs and sit around the outfield fence, or you can come sit on the bleachers, whatever you want to do. And the Bravehearts have done a nice job. The Bravehearts annually lead the Futures League in attendance. When they're in Worcester, they average about 2,500 fans a game, which is incredible. They play in about a 4,000-seat stadium. So they have fantastic fan support. They've moved their whole operations, the concessions, everything, up to Doyle Field. So they serve their concessions under a little tent. You can't get more affordable. It's free admission because you're in a public park. It's free parking at the park. If you want to get a little something to eat, you can get a a value meal, they call it, or what did they call it? Adult meal or a kid's meal. It had a hamburger, French fries, a beer, and they had a good selection of beer too. A couple local craft beers. I had a Green Monster IPA from Wachusett Brewery, and you got a hat. You got a Bravehearts hat for $15 for the whole shebang. So it was a great time. And the next day, we went there on a Saturday night, and on Sunday we went and saw the Westfield Starfires, who play in Westfield, Mass, which is in western Massachusetts. It's a suburb of Springfield. They play at Billy Bowens Park. It was stinking hot the day we went. It was probably 90, 95 degrees. Billy Bowens Park is a park that was built for the Babe Ruth World Series. And the city of Westfield has had a national 13-year-old championship team and a 14-year-old championship team. So it's a big Babe Ruth area. And for the last 2 years, this is the second season for the Starfires, they've had a summer college team play there. It's just a little concrete grandstand with plastic chairs bolted into it, little plastic bucket chairs. It's pretty funny looking. You see it. And it seats maybe 1,000 people. The day we were there, it was really hot. There's no shade anywhere. There was maybe 100 people there. So plenty of room to spread out and social distance. It was a good time. The funny thing about the grandstand, it was a little off center. So we sat down on the third base side. The grandstand ends. You know, it's got a little curved grandstand, you know, shaped like this, like for you. But the end of the grandstand on one side ends at home plate. So you kind of got to look this way at everything. So we just moved to the other side. Everything was straight on. It was a good time, except for the heat. And the Starfires offer their own special IPA you can only get there at the ballpark from local brewery Amherst Brewing Company. So even these small summer college teams now are in the beer business. Something to see.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. My question with the Bravehearts, what are their plans next year?
Well, yeah, in reading interviews with the owner, he is very doubtful that they would be able to coexist with the Woo Sox. Because you know the Woo Sox are going to be like the Yard Goats were in Hartford. They're going to be a smash success. They're going to get 10,000 a night.
But even though the Bravehearts have been very successful, 2,000 fans a game, correct?
Yep, 2,000, 2,500 a game. But I don't think I think those fans are going to just gravitate over to Polar Park and pro baseball, the AAA team of the Red Sox. You're right, smack dab in the middle of Red Sox territory here. Worcester is no exception. And
even
it's also
sponsors.
Yeah, and it's only 40 minutes from Pawtucket. So for the fans who live north and west of Pawtucket, they're just going to drive the other direction. There's not going to be much of a change for them. Unfortunately, for somebody like me who lives 30, 40 minutes east of Pawtucket, now I've got an hour, 15-minute drive to get to Polar Park. So it hurts my side of the fan base, for the Pawtucket fan base. So the Woo Sox and the Bravehearts, I don't think they're going to coexist. So this may end up turning into a trial run. Maybe Doyle Field will turn into a permanent home for the Bravehearts.
And how far is Doyle Field from
Worcester? 20 minutes. 20 minutes.
Okay.
I don't know if it would be a great landing spot for them because it's not really a stadium per se. They've got a couple bleachers. They've got plenty of room. The Dirt Dogs were never very successful, but the game day presentation was nowhere near what I saw from the Bravehearts. So we'll see. We'll see if this is. I think I wrote that in my review of Doyle Field. That will this be an audition? It'll be interesting to see. We're running out of old minor league parks to put teams in. Although if contraction happens, you're saying goodbye to the Lowell Spinners.
Yeah.
You're saying goodbye to the Vermont Lake Monsters.
Oh.
And you're saying goodbye to the Connecticut Tigers or the Norwich Sea Unicorns now. They rebranded.
Yeah, they never even had a chance to play under that name.
Yeah, and you're saying goodbye to the Paw Sox. So you got 4 minor league stadiums without tenants next year potentially.
Yeah.
So do summer college teams jump in? Do independent league teams jump in? Do you see the Can-Am League or the Atlantic League move in?
I could see both of them. Well, the Can-Am League's the Frontier League now.
Right.
But
Right, they
they're in the
merged.
they're the Can-Am division. So wow, it'd be like a race to pick up those teams.
I
Pick
can
up
see
those
the Atlantic
stadiums.
League moving into McCoy. Probably not the other ballpark. So
Yeah. The
Lowell's
Atlantic
kind of.
League,
Go ahead.
yeah, the Atlantic League doesn't they Can-Am just the Frontier League is I think a little more active in the Atlantic League. I think they're getting Gastonia based on another podcast that I was on. I think they're heading down there, and I can see them going into Pawtucket. But you're right. Norwich would be a prime spot. Lowell.
Yep.
Then you're starting over again. You're trying to get that fan base. You're trying to get the sponsorship. So
Right.
will the fans embrace the independents? I hope so.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting this off season. We're going to have a lot to talk about this winter.
There's going to be a lot to talk about. You're absolutely right.
So that's where I went. I didn't go anywhere the last weekend, but the weekend before, little traveling, and now I have finished the entire Futures League
Cool.
because Brockton is not allowing fans now. The Brockton story is kind of interesting. If we got a minute here to indulge me, Brockton
Yeah, go for it.
at the beginning before the season started, were selling tickets to the Rocks at Campanelli Stadium. Then they were told by the city, no fans. Massachusetts Phase 3 does not allow for fans at adult sporting events. Youth sporting events, you can have fans. Adults, no. Go figure. Anyway, Brockton says, hey, we got a loophole. We can have a beer garden open and serve food and drink to a limited amount of fans in our beer garden. So they were letting 100 people in a game. And it was working out well, I guess. But then the city said, nope, close the loophole. That's not allowed. So now there are no fans at Rocks games.
Wow. Yeah.
And the same goes for North Shore, which is the sixth team in the league.
Mhm.
No fans in North Shore. So I've seen all the baseball I'm going to see in the Futures League.
Well, what about Newport? Have you been to any of those red, blue, white
Newport
games?
is not. Yep, Newport's not allowing fans in the games.
Oh, wow.
So you can't go in Cardines. But Mark, you've been to Cardines, obviously. So
Yes.
you can sit beyond the outfield fence. There's a playground in left field. You can sit in that area. There's probably room for maybe a dozen people. And then in right field, there's a parking lot. So people have also sat out there. Now the restaurant that was there, that used to have the little deck you could sit on, right on the field, closed down.
Really?
So that's not an option anymore.
Oh, how did that close down? That was like an awesome spot.
Well, a little history of that. That used to be called the Mudville Pub, and it was owned for a long time in the 80s and the 90s by Kevin Stakem. I don't know if that name sounds familiar to anyone.
No,
He was an NBA basketball player from the area. Played for the Celtics and the Buffalo Braves, I believe.
Oh, yeah, Buffalo Braves.
I think. I may have that wrong, but he was an NBA player for a little while, for 7-8 years. Came back to Newport, bought the bar, ran it. Fantastic food, nice pub atmosphere. But it's been sold a couple of times since then, and every sale, the restaurant has seemed to decline in quality. And the last time it was sold, they're gutting it, and I think they're trying to start what I was told is they're starting a different business there. It's not even going to be a restaurant anymore. So.
Oh, wow. Yeah, because that was the only spot where you can sit and have a beer and watch the game.
Right.
And
they had
then
a little
there was
enclosed patio there,
which I have a video of that as well on YouTube, Cardines Field. So, and then there's out in left field, there's a gentleman's deck from his house that borders.
But you can't sit there. That's a private residence.
he's probably like, oh, I could just go my backyard and watch. So it's just that is probably the funkiest field you'll ever see a baseball game at.
Yep. And they got a new scoreboard that they haven't been able to show off yet.
Oh.
So we'll talk about. We've talked about Cardines before. It's got a lot of quirks to it. So So I haven't been there. I said to Pam one day, let's go down to Cardines. She said, I am not sitting outside a ballpark looking through a fence to watch a game. So if we get desperate over the next I think they got 3 weekends left. If we get desperate for a game, maybe want a little, Newport's got some great restaurants, great bars. So if we want to do that, we'll head down. But right now it looks doubtful. So Dave, I don't think you've done any trips, but anything exciting going on you want to share?
I did do a trip. Just a little one. So, of course, we don't have any live sports happening up here at all. In fact, the federal government has decided that there shall not be any Toronto Blue Jays up here. word is that Pittsburgh is looking like
I heard that.
the spot where they're going to land. So last article I saw, actually, the Pirates were actually opening up and open to the idea of the Blue Jays playing there as well. So.
See, I liked when they were talking about Buffalo and everybody's saying, yeah, we can call them the BJs.
Yeah. I think we've already been down that path. The original mascot for the Jays was named BJ Birdie, and
Oh, what?
yeah.
You wacky Canadians.
Now he's Ace.
You know, I think I like the BJs a little better now.
All I've ever known is Ace. I didn't know he had another name. Oh, BJ for Blue Jays. I get it.
Yeah, BJ.
Yeah, welcome to Earth, Paul.
He's a little slow, but he gets there.
Yay! If they called him BJs, I totally wouldn't be as mad about Joe Carter.
Yeah, whatever.
Anyway,
so no, Jackson and I hopped in the car. We drove to St. Mary's, Ontario. We took in the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame, which is about as live sportish as I can get around here. Although we did drive by a community center yesterday, and somebody was holding a martial arts class outside. Does that count? We sort of turned our heads.
Did you stop and watch? And
no, not really.
Keep score. Or not do some announcing in your head.
So yeah, we went through the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame. It's in St. Mary's.
What's the matter?
Which is just a little town outside of Stratford. Stratford being known for the Stratford Festival, which is a Shakespearean play. As we listen to Mark bang around with his dog.
Mark's throwing his dog.
Okay. So my dog was crying. Okay.
Apparently. So it's the Hall of Fame's in St. Mary's, because that's kind of in Oxford County, where St. Mary's is basically the heritage of baseball in Canada, which goes back all the way into the 1830s. It's not huge. It's nice. There's some displays. They open up the inductees a little bit broader. Like, you don't have to be Canadian to be inducted. So there are a number of people there who played for the Jays or who played for the Expos. They have the Tip O'Neill Award there, which is the award given to the top Canadian baseball player, which has been dominated in the last 3 decades by like 2 guys. You know, Larry Walker. I think Jackson actually counted, and I think Larry Walker is like 1 or 2 Tip O'Neill awards ahead of Joey Votto. So this year's inductees include Justin Morneau and John Olerud and Dwayne Ward and Jacques Doucette. Jacques Doucette was the French radio broadcaster for the Expos. But, you know, we had a good time there. Had to send you a picture of the worst seats in the history of baseball.
Yeah, that looked like an egg.
Oh.
Like Mort from Mort popped out of that thing.
Yeah, that was a seat from Olympic Stadium in Montreal. It was just
Great memories.
Little buckets, and they're horrible. They're definitely not like the seat that you posted about on Stadium Journey today. The
William Taft, yeah, it was the opposite.
Opposite. It wasn't the double wide seat. It was the half the size seat.
I wish that double wide seat was still at Yale Field, man, because that would be very comfortable for me.
That'd be funky. Funny story though, the Hall of Fame, of course, is looking for ways to make money, so they've got a silent auction on. I went on the silent auction. They had a package of like six baseball books, and the bid was about $100. So I was like, what the heck? I'll up the bid. So then got to the Hall of Fame. Yeah, there's that picture. You got to say something so that people can see it, Paul.
Yeah, if you're looking at our Twitch feed right now, this is the seat Dave's talking about. This is an actual seat from Olympic Stadium in Montreal.
It's a toilet.
No, that was the seat. That's not a lie. He's not lying.
Or as I like to call it, the Expo's throne.
Yeah, they're pretty bad.
Yeah, that looks like a butt buster right there.
That doesn't even look comfortable for a thin guy.
It doesn't look like a chair.
They're just horrible. They were like.
Did it go this way? No.
No, that's right. So
Right,
yeah,
you get
anyway, I put a bid on these books, 6 books, and it was over $100. So then I got to the Hall of Fame, and they had this table with discount books on it, and all 6 of those books were on the table, listed for $10 a piece.
Oh God.
I hope you didn't win the auction.
Thankfully, I was outbid, so I didn't win the auction. But yeah, so that was our trip to St. Mary's Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame, and that's just about all that we got going on. I'm gonna look into it. We might be able to actually do the Hockey Hall of Fame. I think I'm not sure if it's open or not. I know the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame has only opened in the last 2 weeks or something, and things are starting to open up. But Toronto is still behind most of the rest of Ontario, and the induction weekend, of course, has been pushed off until next year. So those guys.
Did they announce who went in this year?
Yeah, Justin Morneau, John Olerud, Dwayne Ward, Jacques Doucette. Interesting thing though, kind of big news here was the I guess it was an E60 little documentary on Roy Halladay. Roy Halladay actually was at his induction into the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame, and his plane crashed about a month later. So he was actually at his Canadian induction, and of course was unable to be at the National Baseball Hall of Fame one. So that was my visit.
All right. So
which is the best visit I've had since February 29th.
No
You know
kidding,
what?
huh?
You take this year. I'll take any bit anywhere, and I will enjoy it. I'm with you there.
Yeah, I've really appreciated going to New Britain and Nashua and Westfield and Worcester. Yeah. Any game is better than no game at all, correct? I'm sure that's something we can all agree on. So that's where we'll wrap it up for tonight. I want to thank everyone who's stuck with us on Twitch and everyone who's listening to us later on. We appreciate you. So first of all, thanks to Emma Tiedemann for joining us tonight. Dan, where can our listeners follow you online?
You can watch me, Emma, and her boyfriend go at it on Twitter at Tanlaw83.
Do you want to explain what that means to our listeners who may not have known the story behind the story here?
Yes, so the gentleman, Jay Skaggs, as I'm calling him right now, who was asking questions on Twitch was her boyfriend, Jesse. And now they're making fun of each other on my tweet.
Awesome. That's something for me to do.
But it's at Danlaw83, please. Also, if you're listening to this, or if you're watching this on YouTube, please go to Twitch and follow for free twitch.tv/Danlaw83 to watch us live. Or just follow and tell your friends. Just play it in the background. I don't care if you watch. As long as I get the ratings, I don't care.
As they said in Animal House, don't cost nothing.
It don't cost nothing.
Mark, any stadium journeys planned for you, and where can our listeners follow you online?
Yes, this Thursday I'll be in Lansing, Michigan for the inaugural game of the Lemonade League. It's hosted by the Lansing Lugnuts. 7-inning games, all tied games going into the 8th. They're going to be decided by a home run derby, and all the baseballs will be yellow. So I will be there this Thursday night to check out this historic event. 3-hour drive, because just like everyone else, I am starving for some baseball. There's much going on here in Indianapolis or the state. So be some way to enjoy it. Get a little mini trip this year. And you can check out that information on Twitter or YouTube at Ballpark Hunter.
Hey, I saw my first tiebreaker home run derby this past weekend, and I got to tell you, it was a lot of fun. They did a 3-minute home run derby,
sounds like fun.
The one guy beat the guy who won. It was like 11-10. They were just launching balls out of Doyle Field. It was a lot of fun.
Wow.
So, Dave, where can our listeners follow your travels? And are there any travels?
My travels. Well, the literary journey continues. So just finished reading A Tribe Reborn, which is about the resurgence of the Cleveland Indians. It was not too bad. And rolled into the Battle of Alberta. So that's a rivalry. Whew, that's pretty bad. But you can follow me, not on Instagram because, again, February 29th. You can follow me at Twitter at Profan9. And if you want to check out maybe the future of podcasting, check out The Batter's Eye on YouTube and see Jackson as he counts down the top batters and the top pitchers. And it's all done by himself. I did practically nothing.
Yep, Jackson is in training to replace us all.
Look out, Dave. Your job's on the line.
Well, yeah.
You just got to work on a camera angle.
You know what? Everybody has a podcast these days. Why not?
Why not? Why not? And you can follow my Stadium Journeys on Twitter or Instagram at PuckmanRI. Over the next fortnight, we are considering a trip. Fortnight, yep. I mean the old English word fortnight, which means 2 weeks.
Damn it.
But Mark, we're going to beat your trip if we do this, because we're considering driving up to Glens Falls, New York, to catch the Independent Collegiate Summer League. They play at East Field, which is an old minor league ballpark in Glens Falls, New York, which is 3.5 hours away from us. But that's all up in the air right now. We'll see if we do it or not. It's quite a drive just to go up to a game.
East Field, 40th anniversary. There's a great story how that stadium came into existence. Schenectady did not want to have a ballpark, so they found a ball field and they said, "Hey, let's put a stadium here," and just built it from scratch. So be curious to see your opinion about that.
All right. Well, either this coming Saturday or the next one. If we've got that itch to scratch, we'll be hitting the road. So until next time, check out our website, stadiumjourney.com. Follow us on Twitter or Instagram at Stadium Journey. You can find our podcast at vocnation.com or just search VOC Nation on iTunes or Android. And you can check out the video simulcasts of all of our podcasts on Stadium Journey's YouTube page. And don't forget, we simulcast all our episodes live at twitch.tv/danlaw83. We will all return in 2 weeks, and we will be joined by Dustin Reese to talk about venues in the great city of Chicago. Again, thanks to Emma Tiedemann for joining us tonight. For Dan Colachico, Mark Viquez, and Dave Cotney, I am Paul Baker. Until next time, everyone, take care of yourselves, and more importantly, let's take care of each other.